The amphitheater on Argus Prime glittered under the artificial sun, casting long metallic reflections across the curved walls like ripples in a synthetic ocean. Delegates from 17 galactic species gathered in a meticulously engineered ring of observation, elites cloaked in ceremonial armor, scaled diplomats, and stone-faced tacticians, all watching the center stage like predators surveying prey. The air buzzed with anticipation, but beneath the polished calm was something more primal: amusement. On the hollow platform, a holographic montage looped silently, a visual boast. Alien marksmen from across the galaxy struck bullseye after bullseye. Explosive bolts detonated targets with surgical precision. Laser rounds split microscopic drones mid-air. The final clip showed a Synthian soldier firing 2 weapons backward while flipping through zero-gravity debris, each shot a perfect hit. The crowd erupted in applause, species-specific sounds of approval echoing like a choir of dominance. Then, the image changed. A human firing range. Female soldiers lining up. Clunky rifles. Unimpressive scores. A slow-motion shot of one woman missing her target entirely. Laughter rolled through the hall. Dry clicks, guttural hisses, chittering squeals. Some clapped out of politeness. Others simply sneered. Commander Virex of the Drakari stepped forward. Nearly 9 feet tall, his obsidian armor shimmered with authority, his crimson cape fluttering like a war banner. He raised a taloned hand, and the room fell silent. "The Terran Alliance," he began, voice like stone dragged across steel, "wishes to showcase its finest. And yet their women," he turned to the gallery, grin slicing across his scaled maw, "barely qualify for sport." The room erupted again. Laughter. Derision. Even a few human delegates chuckled nervously, trying to blend in. At the edge of the assembly, a smaller figure remained motionless. Lieutenant Mira Cole stood behind the Terran military envoy, expression unreadable, hands clasped behind her back, rifle slung low. Her uniform was neat but unremarkable, her demeanor almost invisible. She might have passed for an aide, or an analyst. She preferred it that way. Ambassador Rourke, the human representative, leaned toward her and muttered, "Try not to take it personally. Galactic politics is a performance. This is theater." Mira didn't answer. Her gaze remained on Virex. "Let it be known," Virex continued, voice rising, "that for the upcoming tri-system tactical trial, the Drakari welcome all challengers, even those with questionable marksmanship." He didn't need to name them. All eyes returned to the humans. Mira's jaw clenched. Later, in the staging corridors behind the arena, Mira sat alone on a low bench, polishing her weapon with slow, methodical care. She could hear the fading echoes of Virex's speech through the thick walls, his words etched into her mind like bullet scars. The door hissed open, and Rourke entered, rubbing his forehead. "Well," he exhaled, "that could have gone better." Mira kept polishing. "You're not even going to say I told you so?" She looked up. "Wouldn't help." Rourke studied her for a moment, then sat beside her. "I know this whole mission reeks of old bias. But the trial wasn't even our idea. The Council pushed for it to demonstrate interspecies unity. Now it's turning into a bloodless war for pride." "Bloodless doesn't mean painless," she muttered. He sighed. "You sure you still want in? The roster isn't set yet." "I'm in. You'll be outnumbered, out-teched, outgunned. Then they won't see it coming." He frowned, his expression softening. "You've got nothing to prove." She met his gaze. "That's where you're wrong." Word spread fast. By the next day, every tactical feed across 3 sectors buzzed with headlines. "Human woman to compete in Empire's elite trial." Reactions were swift and vicious. Meme loops of her missed training shots circulated with laughter tracks added. Alien newscasters openly mocked her selection. A popular Drakari commentator called her a PR stunt in uniform. Others weren't so kind. Mira ignored it all. In the transport hangar, she checked her loadout again and again, not because she was unsure, but because habits honed in silence were the only shield she had left. She ran her fingers across the matte finish of her modified XR-7 rifle. The weapon was outdated by Galactic standards. No autolock, no AI targeting. But she didn't need it to think for her. She remembered a moment, years ago, on Earth. Her sniper instructor, Sergeant Valles, had stood over her after a botched trial. Mira had fired 6 shots. 3 had missed. "You aim like you're scared of hitting," he'd said. "This rifle isn't about pulling a trigger. It's about owning the silence between breaths." She had never forgotten that. At the mission briefing, Mira stood with the other competitors, most of whom ignored her. A Cynthian sniper turned his lens-covered eyes toward her, then turned away laughing. A Felidon warrior sniffed the air and muttered something in his native tongue, something clearly disrespectful. She listened, logged every voice, every movement. General Taryn, a neutral observer from the Galactic Council, laid out the trial rules. The simulation will last 48 standard hours. Environment: Moon A-93, mountainous terrain, dynamic weather, limited tech integration. You are permitted 1 weapon, 3 days rations, and no drones. Your objective: survive and eliminate all opposition. Pain rounds only. Full neural feedback enabled. One of the Cynthians grinned. "So the pain's real, but the death's not." Comforting. Taryn ignored him. This trial is meant to test not only skill, but adaptability, intelligence, discipline. The last operative standing will earn recognition for their entire species. Questions. Mira raised a hand. Taryn nodded. "Lieutenant, what's the penalty for a kill shot to the commander's ego?" A beat of silence. Then, a few chuckles, muted, cautious. Even Taryn's mouth twitched. "Just try not to shoot the spectators." When the briefing ended, Mira walked alone back to her bunk. Along the corridor, someone had scrawled the word mascot in digital ink across her locker. She wiped it away with the sleeve of her jacket. That night, she dreamed of her sister. Tall, fierce, faster with a blade than Mira ever was with a gun. They'd both enlisted together, one chasing legacy, the other silence. Her sister had died during training, pushed too far by a drill sergeant who didn't believe women belonged in frontline units. No charges were filed. No names were spoken. Mira remembered standing at the funeral, silent, ignored, unphotographed. The next day, she shot her first bullseye. Dawn broke over the distant planet as the contestants stood at the drop bay. Each was encased in reinforced armor, breathing calmly through their filters. Mira stood among them, a strange stillness in her stance. The others bounced on their heels, eager. She simply waited. "Any last words?" asked a reporter hovering nearby. Mira looked into the lens. "Just watch." The bay opened. Wind howled. The drop pods launched like silver bullets toward the moon below. Inside her pod, Mira closed her eyes. She didn't think of the mockery, or the odds, or the hollow grins of diplomats who didn't believe in her. She thought of silence, stillness, the cold kiss of her rifle's cheek rest, the heartbeat between inhaling and letting go. The moon's surface came into view, jagged cliffs, deep valleys, flickering magnetic storms painting the sky. Hostile. Perfect. Her pod hit ground. The hatch blew open. She stepped out into the wind, her boots sinking slightly into the dust, her rifle locked to her back. Already, scanners buzzed with proximity alerts. The other squads were moving. Fast. Mira didn't. She knelt, touched the dirt, let her breath steady. She felt the wind patterns. Mapped the terrain from memory. Counted how many seconds it would take to reach higher ground. She moved east. Behind her, another drop pod landed. Then another. The hunt had begun. But it wasn't just a contest anymore. It was a reckoning. The moon's light was fractured, casting jagged shadows across a craggy terrain littered with broken rock, dry riverbeds, and the ruins of a long-forgotten mining outpost. Mira moved like a whisper, her steps deliberate and almost ritualistic, the muzzle of her rifle tucked beneath a weather-worn cloak that disguised both her silhouette and her heat signature. Above her, drones buzzed faintly, belonging to the enemy, not hers. She had no drones. That was intentional. She knew how they hunted. Synthetic eyes, heat sensors, reactive AI. But all of them relied on technology, on rapid responses and computational projections. They didn't rely on patience. And patience, Mira had learned, was a weapon most species had forgotten how to wield. She reached the crest of a shale-covered ridge and laid flat, eyes behind the scope, scanning. South, 2 kilometers away, a trail of infrared footprints shimmered, clumsy, fast, arrogant. The Drakari moved in formation. Tight, precise, overconfident. They weren't hiding. They didn't think they needed to. Mira exhaled, adjusted her scope 3 clicks left, and waited. A thin gust shifted the dust at her back, but she didn't move. The wind always told her something. Right now, it told her that nothing behind her stirred, yet. Her finger hovered near the trigger, not resting, just breathing with it. The Drakari trio passed a crumbling satellite dish half buried in rubble. One of them laughed over an open channel. Still no sign of the human. Maybe she forgot how to aim her boots. Mira didn't smile. She listened. Logged their position. Let them pass. 3 minutes later, a high-pitched sound pinged through the air, a warning. The Cynthians were broadcasting a grid-wide scan pulse, hoping to flush out cloaked signatures. Mira ducked low into a crack in the cliff, waited for the pulse to pass, and watched her HUD flicker. She rerouted power to her internal dampeners, cutting off even basic life signal emissions. To them, she vanished. She crawled forward through the crevice like a shadow melting into deeper stone, following the ridgeline until she reached an overlook above a narrow valley. There, nestled between 2 shattered cargo haulers, she found what she needed: high ground, a bottleneck, and just enough cover to vanish. She unpacked her trap. 10 meters of microfilament tripwire, coated in camo resin, stretched between the haulers. It wasn't meant to kill, just confuse. Nearby, she rigged an echo spike, an old Earth trick. When triggered, it would replay her last spoken phrase, throwing voices into the wind. She baited it with 6 simple words: "You missed me by inches." Her voice echoed quietly once before she killed the test. She smiled for the first time that day. The Felidon squad approached an hour later. Mira watched through her scope as they moved like hunting cats, silent, fast, but impatient. Their leader, Joran, was a decorated killer from the outer colonies, known for dragging trophies behind him. He sniffed the air again, narrowed his eyes, and growled. "She's here." He was right. But too late. The first soldier tripped the wire. The echo spike screamed Myra's baited phrase into the canyon. All 3 spun their weapons toward the wrong side of the hauler. Mira fired once. The lead soldier went down with a scream, hit in the lower back. Pain rounds didn't kill, but they came close enough to make you wish they did. The second soldier dropped to the dirt, returned fire at shadows. Mira rolled left, already repositioning. She fired again. Another hit. The last soldier turned to run. Mira didn't chase. She waited. He made it 3 meters before she hit his leg, and he collapsed with a strangled cry. Joran, still moving, vanished into a plume of dust. Smart. But not fast enough. She could have chased him. But she didn't. That wasn't the plan. Instead, she climbed higher, circled back toward the collapsed outpost's comm tower. From there, she could see the entirety of the simulated war zone. Dots blinked across her HUD, contact signals, weapon discharges, rising neural stress signatures. The Cynthians were hunting the Drakari now. Interesting. She tapped into the public comms, listening without speaking. The enemy squads weren't coordinated. They were fighting each other, trying to rack up eliminations for their own species' glory. That was their weakness. They didn't fear her. Not yet. Below her, half buried in snowdrift, the Drakari regrouped. Mira recognized Vyrex's protege among them, Sergeant Craig, known for his psychotic trigger discipline and zero hesitation. He walked like he owned the canyon, scanning for signals with his wrist link, barking orders with clipped menace. She's here. Somewhere. Don't be fooled by her silence. He was smarter than most. That made him dangerous. Mira stayed low, crawling through a half-collapsed ventilation shaft above them. She didn't have a clean shot, yet. But she wasn't here to pick them off one by one. She was here to break their pattern. She took a small reflective shard from her belt, a sliver of her broken visor from training, kept more out of habit than necessity. She angled it between the grating, reflecting sunlight down into the canyon, briefly. Just enough to flicker in their peripheral vision. Craig saw it. He opened fire. The others followed, unloading rounds into empty cliff face. She was already behind them. By the time they realized, Mira had looped back toward the wrecked transport shuttle on the ridge. From its cargo bay, she had a full line of sight, and she used it. 3 rounds. 3 targets. All hits. Craig spun wildly, trying to triangulate. Then silence. Mira held her breath, blending into the dusk. Craig fired into the shadows anyway, screaming into the wind, enraged. The War Games simulation system registered the eliminations. Notifications popped up on every visor across the battlefield. Eliminated. Felidon operative. Confirmed. Eliminated. Drakari operative. Confirmed. Eliminated. Drakari operative. Confirmed. And beneath it, a line that silenced every open comm channel. Operative. Human. Lieutenant Mira Cole. The galaxy paused. At an Empire operations tent orbiting the moon, Commander Virex leaned forward, his claws tapping against the steel of his observation deck. His smile was gone. His breathing was heavier. "That's not possible," he muttered. Across from him, Ambassador Rourke sipped calmly from a thermos. "She hasn't even warmed up yet." Back on the moon, Mira scavenged a broken sensor array, ripping its power cell free and wiring it into a makeshift proximity mine. She buried it beneath a layer of scorched rock, just east of an energy spring, a natural choke point most alien tacticians would recognize as strategic high ground. It was bait. The kind of bait only an elite sniper would sniff out. She wanted to draw him out. Craig. The protégé. She left just enough evidence, a discarded thermal pack, some faint tracks, an empty pane round shell glinting in the dust. Then she vanished again. From a nearby cliffside, she watched Craig take the bait. He approached carefully, sweeping the area with infrared, speaking low into his mic. "She's leaving us trails now." Arrogant. Mira smiled. He knelt beside the thermal pack. The mine didn't explode. It emitted a single, piercing pulse, disabling his sensor systems. Craig froze. That's when Mira shot the rock beside him. Not to hit, just to spook. He dove left, shouting. "Visual contact. She's above." "No, she's." Another shot. Near miss. He panicked. Opened fire in a wide arc. And Mira moved again, like water bending around flame. She could end it now. She could put a round clean through his thigh and let the sim system remove him. But she didn't. She wanted him rattled. Because fear lingered longer than pain. Craig's comm feed opened accidentally to the public channel. Everyone heard his ragged breathing. "She's not aiming for kills," he gasped. "She's playing with us." And that was the moment the Empire lost its composure. Mira disengaged. Slipped away through a crumbling tunnel under the ridge, footsteps silent, leaving only tension behind. She reached her final perch before nightfall, a ruined weather tower with fractured visibility but natural wind cover. She rigged her rifle with a suppressor, took stock of her remaining rounds, ate, and settled in. Below her, the remaining teams had gone quiet. They were talking less, scanning more. They'd stopped mocking her. Now they were afraid of becoming the next name on her scoreboard. For the first time in the War Games history, a single soldier had disrupted the entire simulation's rhythm. The quiet had become hers. In the dark, Mira closed her eyes. Her muscles ached, but her breath was calm. She wasn't fighting for medals, or flags, or planetary pride. She was fighting for the ghosts no one else remembered. For every shot taken in silence. For every time she'd been told she was invisible. Now they saw her. The comm line flickered once. An encrypted message pinged her HUD. Target change detected. Empire sniper en route. Confirmed kill record. 100 plus.
Oh.
They were sending their best.
Good.
Mira adjusted her scope, cracked her knuckles, and whispered to herself the same 6 words she'd once spoken on Earth's final sniper exam. 1 shot. That's all I need. The cold bit deeper at this altitude. A feral wind slithered through the cracks of the collapsed weather tower, howling softly, like a ghost warning Mira to stay low. She didn't move. Her body was stone, fused to the perch where she'd been waiting for hours, every muscle disciplined into stillness. Even her breath was rationed, measured. 1 shallow inhale. A pause. Then release. She had seen no movement for over an hour. That was how she knew he was close. The Empire's finest sniper, the one they called the Whisper, didn't announce himself with noise or chaos. He arrived in the quiet. No drones, no heat trail, no broadcasts. Just the slow, suffocating sense that you were being watched. Mira didn't need a briefing to understand what she was up against. She had read the reports. 100 confirmed kills. Not a single known miss. Most of them snipers like her. All eliminated before they could fire a single shot. He was a ghost in their records. No name. No face. Just clean, surgical data. Drop zones, kill zones, and silence. But ghosts didn't scare Mira. They bled like anyone else. Through her scope, Mira watched a leaf flutter. Just one. Nothing else moved. The wind had shifted. She adjusted slightly, not to aim, but to change the position of her silhouette. From her perch, the shadows played tricks, blending metal, flesh, and fabric into something nearly indistinguishable from the rubble. She closed her left eye, breathed, and let the world disappear except for the view inside her lens. Nothing. Which meant everything. She wasn't hunting him anymore. He was here. And now, it was a waiting game. An hour passed. Maybe more. Mira didn't check. Then it happened. A glint. Not light, too subtle. It was absence of it. A shimmer, a twitch in the atmosphere, 25 degrees northwest. The kind of shift only a sniper would recognize. He was mirroring her patience. Mira didn't reach for her trigger. Not yet. Instead, she slowly removed the small triangular shard of cracked glass from her pouch, the same shard she'd used to bait Craig, and angled it just enough to catch the glint again. Confirmation. He was prone on a ridge about 700 meters away, nestled between a split in the rock, hidden under a thermal mesh that even her scope could barely penetrate. But she had his shape now, and he hadn't fired. That meant he hadn't confirmed her position. She still had time. Her hands remained steady, but her pulse shifted. Not faster, deeper. Like her body was preparing itself, remembering every simulation, every nightmare, every memory she'd buried beneath calm efficiency. One floated to the surface now, her final sniper exam on Earth. Wind slicing through the tower. Target half a mile out. The instructor's voice in her ear, doubting her, again. She's human. She'll flinch. They always flinch. She hadn't flinched then. She wouldn't now. She studied the sniper's cover, calculating. He'd chosen elevation, but not mobility. That was confidence. Too much of it. He assumed his first shot would end it. He wasn't planning for a second. Good. Mira dialed her scope. Adjusted for wind drift. Rechecked temperature. Humidity. Angle of light. She did it all with the rhythm of ritual. Calm, practiced, sacred. Then she stopped breathing. The glint appeared again. Just a flash. A mistake. He was adjusting his aim. She had 1 second. Maybe less. She fired. The bullet didn't echo. Her suppressor ensured that. What it did was slice through the silence with the precision of a scalpel, hitting the exact edge of the sniper's perch. Not him. Just enough to detonate the dust under his rifle, forcing his scope off alignment. The shot he took fired wide, striking a slab of concrete 3 feet to Myra's right. Close. Too close. She rolled backward instantly, switching positions in one breath, using the structure's broken scaffolding to descend one level. She didn't wait. She didn't check for damage. She moved, fast and silent, disappearing from the perch before the whisper could lock on again. She hit the ground and sprinted low, weaving through bent beams and broken satellite panels, heart steady. In her HUD, a flashing dot now marked his ridge. He had fired. He was no longer a ghost. Now she hunted. Circling wide, Mira moved through the hollowed bones of the station's southern corridor, rusted pipes, shattered terminals, vines creeping through old panel seams. The structure groaned beneath her boots, but the sound was familiar. It reminded her of old training grounds back home. Earth's last war had left buildings like this everywhere, ghost towns made of metal and regrets. She paused under a collapsed airlock and reloaded. 7 rounds. That was enough. Her comm cracked, barely audible. Rourke's voice, encrypted, tight with tension. "We're watching." He missed. The whole galaxy just saw it. Mira didn't respond. She didn't need to. Everyone else needed to see something she'd known from the beginning. They weren't invincible. She emerged from the corridor at a new elevation, lower than her perch, but angled against the sun, giving her partial light advantage. From this point, she could draw closer to the ridge without exposing herself. He had repositioned. She knew he would. But his pride had taken a hit. That would cost him. Mira scanned, creeping along the outcropping edge. The silence was thick again, almost viscous, as if the battlefield held its breath. There were no more Empire units moving. No Drakari. No Felidons. Only the two of them now. A duel centuries in the making, played out in the ruins of a forgotten world. Then she heard it. The faintest crunch. Not behind her. Above. She ducked instinctively as a round screamed past, burning through air, missing her by inches. He'd moved higher. Smart. He was trying to trap her in the valley. But now he had committed to a new line of fire. That meant pressure. That meant patterns. And Mira had studied every sniper's downfall. They always repeated their best shot. She kept running, zigzagging between debris, using the terrain as her ally. She didn't need to see him now. She only needed to find where he would move next. She reached a ravine, narrow, steep-walled, and filled with fractured glass panels from an ancient solar array. There, she laid her trap. A broken visor. A cracked boot heel. A thermal pouch leaking vapor. The bait was set. Then she climbed. Higher than she thought the tower would allow, up to the satellite dish's shattered spine, balancing her weight across jagged beams that groaned with each breath. Her rifle braced against a split strut, she found her sight line, perfect. The whisper moved below, silent, cautious. He had taken the bait. He paused at the ravine's edge, scoping the trail she had left. She didn't fire. Not yet. He stepped forward, just enough. She breathed out. Slower than before. Let the pressure melt. Then she fired. The round struck his rifle, snapping it from his hands. He spun, drawing a sidearm, aiming blind. She fired again. The bullet struck the weapon mid-barrel, sending shards of it flying. He froze. Mira lowered her scope. She let herself be seen. For the first time, the whisper saw her face, calm, unflinching, framed in wind and steel. He reached for his comm. She shot it clean off his belt. He stood there, disarmed, exposed, not physically injured, but no longer a weapon. Just a man. The SIM system registered the elimination. Eliminated. Empire operative. Confirmed. The battlefield feed updated. Final standing. Human operative. Lieutenant Mira Cole, active. The silence across the comms was no longer suspenseful. It was reverent. Mira exhaled and slid down from the satellite perch, landing lightly among the ruins. Her knees ached. Her back throbbed. But her hands were steady. She approached the man they'd all feared. He was older than she expected, with hollow eyes and scars etched deep from 100 wars. He looked at her not with hatred, but disbelief. "You didn't miss," he said quietly. No, Mira replied. I never needed to. She turned before he could say more. Above them, a shuttle broke through the clouds, descending with imperial banners retracted and human insignia glowing in defiance. The game was over. But the message had only just begun. Mira holstered her rifle. One shot had changed everything. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that settled after an earthquake, thick with dust, layered with broken things, echoing with the memory of something that shouldn't have happened. The Empire's sniper had been defeated. Not just wounded. Not outmaneuvered. Defeated. Cleanly. Decisively. Publicly. Every feed that still had power was replaying the moment from multiple angles. The first miss, the trap, the disarmament. And Mira Cole standing over it all, steady as stone. The Empire scrambled to regain control of the narrative. But no edit could erase what every soldier, commander, and analyst had seen. A human woman, once dismissed as a statistical anomaly, now a symbol of strategic perfection. And worse, for them, resilience. Not brutality. Not luck. Not brute force. Precision. That was what terrified them. Because the Empire didn't fear power. They were power. They feared discipline in the hands of the underestimated. Mira sat alone in the debrief chamber. The walls were brushed steel, seamless, as if reality itself was trying to remain sterile in her presence. Her sniper rifle was placed in a case beside her, sealed, but not taken. No one dared touch it now. Not without her permission. Across from her, Admiral Rourke paced, holding a datapad that vibrated with incoming transmissions. His face was unreadable, until he looked at her. Then it was something closer to awe. You rewrote the odds, he said at last. She didn't respond. He tapped the pad. 12 Empire border colonies have gone dark. Radio silence. Panic level. We intercepted chatter. There's hesitation in their command lines. Soldiers are questioning orders. They think you're a prototype. A human military AI. Something we built in a lab. Mira raised an eyebrow. Do they think I'm not real? Oh, they think you're real. He set the pad down. They're just hoping you're alone. Mira's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. Rourke dropped into the chair opposite her and leaned forward. We're trying to get ahead of this, Mira. Command wants to turn your image into a symbol. Something to rally the fringe systems. But there's a complication. She looked at him. Of course there is. He hesitated, then said, the Empire's response was specific. Mira didn't flinch. A name. Rourke shook his head. Worse. They've designated a new protocol. Sable Directive. It's been dormant since before the Terra Wars. Only used when they believe they're facing a species-level threat. She blinked. And they think I qualify? They think what you represent does. The door opened. A woman entered, mid-40s, skin like cracked stone, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Intelligence. Not a soldier. But dangerous in her own way. She nodded at Mira. Lieutenant Cole. I'm Director Elena. Mira nodded once, slow and deliberate. The woman's voice was crisp. You've triggered their greatest contingency. Congratulations. I didn't do it for the ceremony. No, Elena said. You did it because you knew you could win. That's what they can't process. The Empire has built its control on the assumption that humanity is erratic. Passionate, yes, but imprecise. You violated that assumption. Mira's hands rested in her lap, motionless. They don't fear me. They fear the possibility of more like me. Exactly, the director said. That's why we brought you here. Not for debriefing. For preparation. Mira narrowed her eyes. You've become a symbol, Elena continued. And symbols provoke retaliation. Rourke stood again, moving to the wall and pressing a console. A hologram flickered into life, showing the Empire's outer rim colonies. Red lights bloomed, first one, then dozens. "Countermeasures," he said grimly. "They're cracking down, tightening control, executing anyone suspected of spreading human tactical doctrine. That's what they're calling it now." Mira stood, voice low. "They're killing innocents." "Because they're afraid of an idea," Elena said. Mira stepped toward the map. "Then we give them a better one." Rourke looked up. "Meaning, we don't just let them fear me. We make them understand what they're afraid of." Elena's expression didn't change, but there was a pause, brief, telling. "And what's that?" Myra's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Control doesn't belong to the Empire. It never did. They've ruled by fear, by intimidation, by convincing entire systems they were safer under chains than standing alone. I'm going to remind them what defiance looks like when it's calm, measured, effective. Rourke nodded slowly. "You're planning a campaign." "Not war," she said. "Correction." Elena stepped forward. "We can support this, Mira. We can clear channels, protect cells, move assets. But you need to be sure. Because once this starts, there's no retreat. You'll be hunted harder than anyone in history." Mira turned toward them, her eyes quiet but burning with clarity. "They already tried to erase me. All they did was sharpen my aim." Outside the station, ships began to move. Quietly at first, scouts, runners, couriers bearing encoded messages to distant colonies and resistance enclaves. Not orders. Invitations. Not speeches. Coordinates. It wasn't an army yet, but it was becoming one. Aboard a ship now known across rebel frequencies as the Vow, Mira watched as systems blinked into life, territories where the Empire's grasp had slipped just enough for hope to take root. In her quarters, she reviewed transmission logs, intercepted briefings, and personal messages from commanders she had never met but who now looked to her as proof. A woman on Rigel Theta sent her daughter's drawing, Mira standing in a sea of shadows, holding back the dark with a rifle shaped like a pen. A soldier on Calda Prime wrote, "I don't care if they call you fake. My squad saw you move. You taught us that doubt is the Empire's weakness." A mining colony uploaded a song. Simple, rhythmic, just 6 lines. "One shot fired. One lie fell. One girl stood. One truth swelled. If they miss once, we rise 12. Mira listened once, then deleted none of it. She stepped onto the bridge, where Commander Nian, a Felidon defector, gave her a nod of respect. "We have access to the relay net. Broadcast capacity is open." She took the comm. No preamble. No introduction. Just her voice. "This is Lieutenant Mira Cole of Earth. Not enhanced. Not manufactured. Human. I was told I would miss. That I would fail. That I would fear. But I didn't. I saw a target. I measured my breath. And I fired." She paused. "The Empire believes precision belongs only to them. They believe control is their right. But I am not a symbol. I am a trigger. And across every system, every outpost, every hidden place where fear has reigned, we are now aiming back." She cut the feed. No fanfare. Only silence. But this time, it was not the silence of fear. It was focus. Weeks passed. The Empire struck back. Hard. They dispatched new units. Machine hybrids with reflex algorithms. They saturated the media feeds with propaganda. They declared Mira a rogue AI, a virus in need of deletion. But everywhere they went, they found signs, not of rebellion, but of control slipping. Units hesitated. Civilians refused orders. Snipers, young, untested, mimicked Myra's form. And one by one, small victories bloomed like sparks on a field of oil. Then came the whisper. The director Elena called again, this time her voice tense. "We've intercepted a project. One they buried deep." Mira leaned in. "What kind?" "A prototype. Not a soldier. Not a weapon. A counter symbol. Rourke broke in. They're building someone to kill you specifically. Mira didn't react. Let them try. Elena's voice sharpened. This isn't just about survival. This is evolution. They're rewriting themselves to undo you. Mira stood at the observation deck. Stars stretched across the void, some blinking slowly, some flaring into view. Then we don't stop, she said. Not until every system understands what we really are. Rourke asked quietly, "And what's that?" She turned. A species they were foolish enough to mock. The Empire's greatest fear isn't our strength. It's our aim. And now, we're locked in. The war hadn't ended. But neither had Mira. Not until the galaxy remembered what fear looked like, when it stared down the barrel of human resolve.